So I'm starting something new, and I thought, at least for part of the journey, I would turn on the camera and take you with me because I wanted to talk about some things. And this is a piece I'm working on that will ultimately land on an 8 by 10 canvas. And this is a piece I'm doing in response to some things that have been happening in a class that I'm taking via Fiber Arts Take Two, and it's the Fleur Woods Joyful Embroidery class. And so it is an embroidery class, which of course is something that speaks to my heart. And it's a joyful embroidery class, which means that it's about finding joy in the process of making our art. And you know, that speaks to my heart, right? That's just something that I believe in very strongly. And there's a lot of great lessons in there. Fleur's a wonderful teacher. A lot of things I was revisiting and trying to, decide some new ways of how to do things that I already knew how to do, and that's always a good lesson to learn. But what I found happening to me was that I got so caught up in doing everything exactly like the class was telling us to do things. And it's not like, there were these, rules that you absolutely, this is the only thing you could do. But I got caught up in it. And again, I'm not putting this blame on anything at the class. The blame is on me. I forgot the joy. I totally forgot the joy, and I got all it was like being back in school again. All I'm doing right now is just sort of tacking these things down so that I can get rid of the pins, because I know I'm an absolute klutz with the pins. And so I just want to take a few tacking stitches, and I'm not even going to worry about tying off any knots because everything's going to get hidden. But it got me thinking, because some of you may know that, I've been trying to get to the point where I could set up a classroom myself, partially because I have some other, some longer form things that I would like to share with people. See, I said I wasn't going to do knots, and then I was almost going to stop and do another knot. And, and of course, it is a business, and I would like to, do some teaching to earn some extra income. But it got me thinking about how I might want to do a class so that I didn't put the same kind of pressure on somebody else that I put on myself. And again, the class, I absolutely love the classes over at Fiber Arts Take Two. I think I'm on my 6th or 7th one, and there's no disappointment for me whatsoever in any of them. So don't think this has anything to do with that. What it has to do with is me, and how often, because of a lack of confidence, that I allow myself. And if I allow myself to do this, I suspect I'm not the only person in the world in this situation. I allow myself to be influenced by things that I shouldn't. And, it's one thing to be inspired, but to be influenced, it's kind of like all the social media influencers, right? Do you really need, 57 different types of facial moisturizers because you saw some influencer, posting about it online? No, you probably don't. I don't know, it really got me thinking, which was good. I needed to do that kind of thinking. That's important thinking, to understand why you're creating the art you are, why you're building a classroom, why you're building a community. And that's going to affect how you do a lot of things going forward. For me, it's been about remembering when I used to really hustle, when I was writing books and articles and poetry and stuff, I would hustle just to make $1. And, I'm fortunate that I don't need to sell my art in order to make the bills, but that doesn't mean that I don't want to sell my art. So I don't know, I guess I'm just kind of having a little bit of an internal, it's not a crisis, it's an internal conversation with myself about how can I help other people be inspired and be encouraged and do the art that they're meant to do, while at the same time not losing track of myself and the reason I'm making art in the first place. I mean, 30 years ago, I was a basket case. I was on antidepressants, I was in therapy, I was drinking, I was doing a lot of things that were not healthy for my body and healthy for my mindset. And it's taken a long time to get to the point that I am now, where that's just not my life anymore, and that I feel so much better about myself. And it's been a lot of work, a lot of work. I don't regret any of the work, and I don't really regret the journey, but I am conscious of not letting myself fall back into it. That's the main thing, is I need to always remember that I don't want to fall back into that space. I'm going to be a little more careful of how I attach this, because I do want to keep it pretty much as it is, and I don't want to be worried about how I might have to secure it later, because I don't know what I'm going to do stitch-wise over it. So I don't know. It's a Susan ramble. What can I say? Sometimes those just happen. I was actually thinking about, how I enjoy doing videos where I come on and I just work, but sometimes I don't know what to talk about. People don't ask me questions. If you have questions for me, you can certainly ask me questions, and I'll be happy to try and address those, in videos. But while I was, working on cleaning up the studio this morning, and I was thinking, it took me, I laid out, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 different projects to respond to the class, and then I started something that had nothing to do with the class. It was just something I thought, oh, this is a good idea, and then I realized why I was doing it. I was doing it because, oh, this will be a quick thing to finish, and it'll be a quick something to do, and I can make a lot of them and sell them. And I was just starting to get into this wrong mindset, and I hate it when I let myself do that. I mean, sometimes you can't stop it. It just happens, right? So I figured, well, let's be transparent and let you know, I'm struggling sometimes. I mean, it's not like a, oh my gosh, struggle. It's more of a, tell myself what I'm doing is okay. I don't have to do anything any different. I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay, because not everybody is my cup of tea. And I just need to keep right on doing me. I do want to do a classroom. I do want to do some classes, because that would be some income coming in, and it would be something that would be a little bit more of a sure thing. People get all excited thinking you can monetize on YouTube, and it's wonderful, but it's also not a sure thing, and it's not very much money. I don't have the views on my videos to make the kind of money that the big, influencer people do, and that's okay. That's what a classroom's supposed to be for, but not until I can do it in such a way that feels true to myself, and also doesn't take up so much time that I'm not having a chance to do my own art. It's the other thing, this balance. Doggone it. Life is hard to balance sometimes. And I'm retired from any kind of regular job. I don't have to get out of the office at some time. I don't know how. Well, I guess the way a lot of other people do it is they're probably younger and have more energy, because I know I did a lot more, when I was younger than I do now. And that's okay. That's just part of getting older. But I didn't realize how important it was to me to guard this time. And now I do. And so I really want to make sure that if I do a classroom, if I do more YouTube videos, that I'm also being true to myself. Okay. Susan rant over, maybe, I don't know. I just been thinking a lot about having a regular art practice, which was something I don't think I ever, in 25 years of writing, I don't know that I ever achieved a regular art practice with my writing. I wrote every day, but it was always frantic. It was like racing to, I've got some work for hire stuff. I got some newspaper articles due. I got to do a couple of interviews. And I was always just like kind of running around. And of course, there's not a lot of money in writing either. It's just like art. It's another creative pursuit. But I didn't have a regular art practice. And now I feel like I'm getting closer to having that. I'm getting closer to being in that place that tells me, this is what I do every day. This is how I relax. This is how I celebrate. This is how I live. Yeah, this is how I live. Wow, I am all over the place, and I'm trying to get to the point where I can do something like this. I can pop on for a little bit, show you what I'm working on, and ramble a little bit, and then pop out of here without having to edit the video, because that does take a lot of time. And again, any of the time that I spend with that, if I do a classroom, I'll have to be doing, more editing on videos, of course. But I would like to be able to get some more videos up just to share what I'm working on and not worry quite as much about the editing. And I can go back later and secure these folds a little better, but for right now, okay, I misplaced the rest of my brown thread. So this needle was already threaded with some red stuff, and I know I can go back in and hide that, so I'm not gonna worry about it. Little Miss Perfectionist is not getting out of the trunk of the car. Who am I kidding? I left her alongside the road a long time ago. Well, okay, maybe not such a long time ago, but a while ago. I just want to get those pins out of there because guaranteed, as soon as I pick this thing up to do anything else, I'm going to stab myself with a pin and bleed all over something. So I'm working on a piece of wool that I got from Woolly, I think it's called Woolly Dye Works, is a shop on Etsy, and they just have beautiful, beautiful pieces. And it was a nice size piece of wool. I've got enough left of this color that I could do another piece the same size. So the reason I struggled with getting a piece to do as a response to the class was because there were so many examples going up of flowers, and I love seeing them. They were absolutely beautiful pieces of embroidery of flowers, and I thought, oh, you know, I'm gonna use some of these techniques that I learned in this class, and I'm gonna do something with flowers, and it's gonna be absolutely amazing. And I laid out a whole bunch of ideas, and every one of them was fine. They were very beautiful flowers, but they were flowers. And if you've watched any of my videos in the past, you might notice that I don't do a whole lot with flowers. It's just not my thing. I love looking at them. I love growing them in my garden, but I'm all about the leaves. I'm not about the flowers. So that was kind of the lesson that I had to relearn. A class is not there to force you to do something you don't want to do. It's there to stretch you to grow in your art. No matter what stage of your art journey you're at, you can always learn something from somebody in a class. I have learned tons already, and I know as I go through that multiple times, because that's what I tend to do with these classes, is watch the videos multiple times, I'm going to pick up more tips. I've been playing with tools and materials that I hadn't done much with before, and some that were brand new to me, and some that I hadn't thought about in years. So that's kind of exciting. You know, that's stretching and growing. But to force myself to do something of a genre, it would be sort of like me doing steampunk, which you would never see me do. I really can admire looking at it and all the fascinating things that people do with it, but it's just not my jam, so you're not going to see me doing it. And if I told myself, well, you have to do that thing, that steampunk thing, I would be walking around the studio with this dopey look on my face saying, well, I don't know what to do. And I used to do that when I was writing. I would get these assignments to write stories that just seemed, they just didn't work for me. They weren't coming from my heart. You know, that's what it comes back to. It's got to come back from your heart. And when I look at Fleur Woods and her beautiful floral embroidery, you can tell the joy, the absolute joy that she's getting from creating these works. I can see it. I can see it in every single stitch that she does. And I forgot that. That's so basic, and I forgot that. So that's why I decided to take the flowers off, grab another piece of fabric that seemed more in alignment with me, and start with something else, something that seemed a little bit more like me. Let's see. And that's kind of the way I'm thinking about this. I have a plan, a little bit of a plan. Let's see, I might be going backwards. Is this it? See, and I've already messed myself up. Well, okay, it's not a mess up. It's just different. I do think that's the top. Yeah, I think that was it, like that. I am going to want to add some more texture in here before I start doing any embroidery. So I'm probably going to do some couching. I'm not sure what color. This might be a nice accent. There's a little bit of the rust in there. Or I could go green. This is not the right shade of green. It needs to be more of a darker green. Kind of like these two yarns, so I think I might do some couching with that. And then I might come in, nope, don't like that. Might come in with some lace and do some little things. I've also got this trim that just makes me think of the forest. I wonder what it would be like if I cut just some very small pieces and kind of tried them like that. I don't know. I'm going to play around with it, but now I am working from a place of joy, and that's all I wanted to do. Find the joy, create from joy, just because.